Good morning, and welcome to the November 12th meeting of the Henderson County Fiscal Court. I'm glad you're with us. We will begin, as we always do, with a prayer, and Pastor David Clifford of Henderson First Christian Church is with us. Please stand.
Will you pray with me, please? Most gracious and loving God, we thank you for your presence in our lives and in this community. We ask that your Spirit would be with us throughout this meeting. We ask, God, that your presence would continue to watch over this community, that we would live out what you have called us to be as the people of Henderson, Kentucky. All this in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And thank you, Pastor Clifford. Appreciate you being here. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Magistrate Southard. Here. Magistrate Moran.
Here.
Magistrate Putman.
Here.
Magistrate McCollum.
Here.
Magistrate Berry.
Here.
Thank you. And even though schools are closed today because of the weather, we would not think of ever postponing our Judges Scholar announcement for November. And this month from Cairo School, it is Jack Dalton who is with us. And I'd like Jack to meet me right up here in front of the podium, please. We're going to read a proclamation in Jack's honor.
Whereas Jack Dalton has been chosen by Cairo Elementary School to be recipient of the Judges Scholar Award because he made a choice to accept changes that would benefit his education and well-being, and whereas change is not easy, however, Jack's ability to embrace change has led to growth that will not only further his successes in life, and whereas success is measured in many different ways, whether it be passing a test, scoring the winning point, achieving a particular goal, or taking necessary steps for overall improvement, and whereas the Henderson County school system could not let Jack's efforts go unnoticed, and whereas the Henderson County Fiscal Court supports the school system and acknowledges these changes as being significant because students, such as Jack Dalton, will be our future leaders. And now, therefore, I, Brad Schneider, County Judge Executive of Henderson, join with the Henderson County Fiscal Court to proclaim November 12, 2019, as Jack Dalton Day.
Congratulations, Jack. And I must say, Jack is one of the best dressed Judges Scholars we had. I'm really envious of his shoes. What size do you wear? No. Well, congratulations. You're going to hang out with us the rest of this meeting and watch how the sausage is made. And I'm sure Mr. Gold will coach you up. But just remember, he's a lawyer, so only believe about half of what you hear. But that says the guy who believes 100% of what Steve Gold says all the time. So congratulations, Jack. We next on our agenda, as you recall, we have reconstituted the Human Rights Commission with.
Brad, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Minutes from October 22nd. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any clarifications, additions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Magistrate McCollum. Now. We have with us Charles Johnson, new executive director, and I'd just like him to come to the mic. We're going to make our appointments to this newly reconstituted commission. And if you give me a moment, Reverend Johnson, I will tell the court these names. The mayor has 3 appointments. The judge executive has 3 appointments. And we have 1 joint appointment. I would like to submit to the court these 3 folks for judges' appointments. John Coombs for a term of 3 years. John is the current treasurer and wishes to continue. Abraham Brown for 2 years. Abraham is a leader in this community among the Hispanic population. He is director of Hispanic outreach for Holy Name Church, among other many duties on behalf of the Hispanic community, and volunteered to be a part of the new commission. And then Kenny Martin for a 1-year term. Kenny would be a new member of the commission and works for Brentag, I believe, and expressed a lot of interest in helping. The joint appointment with the mayor would be Ginger Stovall, a current member of the commission, for a 1-year term. Obviously, these are staggered terms to help with continuity. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Reverend Johnson for any comments he'd like to make.
Thank you, Judge, and to the magistrates, thank you for the appointments. I've already reached out to them for contact information to get started. First meeting, they'll start this month, so our first meeting will be the end of the month, November the 25th. So we thank you for the appointments, and we look forward to working with everyone.
It's safe to say you support these folks joining the commission.
Yes, sir.
I'd make a motion to approve those then.
And I would second it.
Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of these appointments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, if you recall, 2 meetings ago, we discussed the appointment of a part-time employee to oversee more purposefully maintenance at the Judicial Center, and got confirmation from the Administrative Office of the Courts that they would fund this position, and the court directed the judge executive and our head of maintenance to identify a person to take that role. And in the resolution in your packets, you'll see that we have identified Stephen A. Powell to begin that part-time position at a rate of $11 per hour in compensation. Again, part-time and covered by the AOC. So when we agreed, when we identified that person, I'd bring it back to the court for approval. You see the resolution in hand. If you'd like, I can have the clerk read the entire resolution.
It says exactly what you just said. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions about this? All those in favor of passing the resolution as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. We have with us from Field and Main Bank, David Sartori. And I appreciate him being here today. Field and Main Bank has been discussing both with my office and the Finance Committee a arrangement that would help their liquidity at the bank. The county now has a substantial amount of money in Field and Main Bank, and it can be difficult for a smaller bank to fulfill its obligations in protecting those sums and setting aside the necessary monies to safeguard that amount without hindering its liquidity, if I'm saying that correctly. And he gave me the nod, so in that I better turn it over to David for a more reasonable explanation.
Well, as you stated, Judge, the county does have a substantial amount of money on deposit with Field and Main Bank. We collateralize those deposits with letters of credit from the Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati. FHLB Cincinnati is a government-sponsored enterprise, so it's, along with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, somewhat a entity of the federal government. What we would like to do is move these deposits into what's known as reciprocal deposits, where we would take the county's money and allocate it through an intermediary to a number of other banks, which would, in place of the letters of credit that we currently issue, would allow the county to have 100% of their deposits insured by the FDIC. So it becomes a full faith and credit of the federal government insured, as opposed to just the government-sponsored enterprise. In turn, as we allocate these funds out to other banks, those banks will send back to us other public unit deposits that they have that they want insured, and we'll receive an equal amount of money back from them. So really the fiscal court's dollars don't in effect leave the community. They just pick up that FDIC insurance from various banks throughout the United States that are fully insured by the FDIC. If that makes much more sense than the way the judge had explained that.
Well, one of the reasons the company that we're going to review the resolution for is doing this is because this is an issue with smaller banks around the country.
It is, and the judge mentioned the liquidity issue. So we have a line of credit at FHLB that's secured by loans that we have made based on some of our real estate contracts. If we're able to move forward with this, as opposed to having a large sum of money tied up in our letter of credit, we would then be able to borrow that money or re-lend that money into the community. So it allows us to roll that money back into the community. The current situation where we're required to either collateralize with Kentucky bonds or government bonds or letters of credit, that kind of limits us to how we can disperse those funds to our customers as well. So it allows us to loan basically what is the fiscal court's money back into our community and reinvest in the community.
A couple things to point out. This will not, on our end, we won't notice a difference.
No, sir.
And this will not cost us anything in the way of fees
No,
or
sir.
anything like that. It just helps Field and Main, and again, it's a tool that many smaller banks are using to help solve this problem. I'll ask members of the Finance Committee, Magistrate Putman or Magistrate McCollum, to make any comments or observations.
Well, I think the Kentucky Treasurer said this is okay. It's been approved, a way of doing it. It's sort of the sad part about this. I think this all goes back to our Constitution from 1892, which was after the Civil War, and they put stuff in the Constitution because people had printed money and gotten the state of Kentucky in a bad place. Unfortunately, that's made it difficult for the school systems and for the counties and us. I mean, we've had to reinvent ways to borrow money and do stuff to circumvent our Constitution, and basically that's what we're doing. And I think it's the right thing to do. I'm sorry that, before we had to have a vote on any kind. If the schools wanted to build a building, they had to have a vote. And it's really hard to have a vote on everything you do to raise money to build schools. And we went for a long time in this county without building new schools. I think we went from 1909 to 1953, I think. And it put our school, it's one reason why our school systems in Kentucky have been behind other states because of this kind of financing stuff.
I will note that it was only within the last 10 to 15 years that the letters of credit from FHLB became eligible collateral for public unit deposits in the state of Kentucky. And not only has the Kentucky State Treasurer issued a letter that says this is a viable option for public unit deposits, we've also provided the judge and Brenda Duncan Ryder in the Treasurer's office with some references, and at least one of those was another county that here in the state of Kentucky that uses this particular method to collateralize their deposits.
As a matter of fact, CAECO even has something that they do that it does this type of thing. It's just through a different provider than what Field and Main is going to be using. One thing, it's important to make sure that the county's money is backed, and that's what this is about, is making sure that it's backed by the FDIC, and you don't have to pledge either securities or loans out in order to make
Correct.
sure that it's backed. One thing that I just wanted to point out to Brenda when I read through the agreement is that if there are multiple accounts, like let's say a general fund, a jail account, or excuse me, if it's all in one account, that's one thing. But if there are multiple accounts, it places the responsibility on us to make sure that no amount of money at any one of the individual banks exceeds $250,000, the FDIC amount. So that's something that Brenda will just have to be clear about as things get parceled out to these different entities. And those banks do show up on the statement as to which bank that they're in.
That is correct.
So that'll just be something that it's not, if it's all in one account, it's automatic, and you all try to do that. However, if there are multiple accounts or different money comes in, that's something that we need to make sure that we're on top of, right?
Yes, and one of the first things that we'll do, and Field and Main Bank is not the only depository of the fiscal court, so we will exclude any depositories that you already do business with. So if you had money at Fifth Third Bank or Old National Bank or Independence Bank, we would say we don't want any of this money to be in reciprocal deposits with those institutions, because there's already that $250,000 of FDIC insurance that's being used with your deposits with those institutions. So we'll actually exclude any banks that you already do business with. And then through the software itself or the intermediary, they will limit, based on the relationship as a whole, how much gets allocated to each bank. So because you do have multiple accounts, we'll ensure that there's not more than $250,000 at any one individual institution.
Now, y'all will take care of that, or we're responsible for that?
The intermediary will take care of that. The only thing we need from the fiscal court or the treasurer's office is to let us know all the banks that you do business with, so we can exclude those and say, we don't want any of these deposits to go to these institutions.
It could get complicated if multiple of the banks that we have deposits with entered into situations like this, but at this point, Field and Main, I believe, is the only one that we're looking at that's doing this. If each of our banks started doing this, then it could get interesting, making sure there's not more than $250,000 in each one.
Right. The left hand wouldn't know what the right hand's doing.
Right.
And I just wanted to point that out as we go forward to make sure that that was on Brenda's radar screen as well.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, and I'll have the clerk read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing Henderson County Judge Executive to execute insured cash sweep ICS deposit placement agreement with Promontory Interfinancial Network, LLC. Whereas the Henderson Fiscal Court has been approached by its bank about an insured cash sweep program that would allow them to distribute county deposits that are in excess of FDIC insurance limits into pooled demand deposit accounts with other FDIC insured institutions. And whereas the county judge executive and the county treasurer have investigated the proposed arrangement and deemed it in the best interest of the county to enter into said arrangement. And whereas the Henderson County Fiscal Court accepts the recommendations of the county judge executive and the county treasurer and deems it in the best interest of Henderson County to execute said agreement. Now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson as that the Henderson County Fiscal Court authorizes and directs County Judge Executive Brad Schneider to execute the attached insured cash sweep deposit placement agreement with Promontory Interfinancial Network, LLC, and to execute any and all other necessary and appropriate documents to required to effectuate the intent thereof.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Gold.
Judge, I've got several checks today. The first being a flow-through from the City of Henderson for $458.33. Dental and life reimbursement, $408.89. Health insurance, $7,249. And AFLAC reimbursement, $124.94. Interest in the amount of $21.42, $64.27, and $682.94 for total remitted to the county today of $9,009.79. And Jack's going to hand that to you.
Thank you, Jack. Can I get a motion to accept the county attorney payments?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Treasurer Ryder, with any fund transfers or claims?
I have one fund transfer in the amount of $7,500 from the HRA account to the general fund. What this was a check that was issued October 22nd by the county attorney's office. It was issued to the HRA fund and should have been issued to the general fund. It was issued and deposited to the HRA fund and should have been to the general fund, so I'm asking to transfer that.
And just as of explanation, this is part of that reimbursement we were getting, that local match we were getting on child support. And this was the first time we got a check for that, and we wrote it the wrong way, but we've figured it out. But it's always good to get money and be able to turn it over.
Get a motion to accept that transfer?
So move.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other questions of Treasurer Ryder? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
I have a correction to the October 22nd claims. The claim was read as being from the road fund to the general fund in the amount of $1,722.70 when it should have read from the jail fund to the general fund. Claims for today in the general fund to Old National Wealth in the amount of $250,850. This is the payment and interest on the 911 bond, and this is to come from the 911 debt service appropriation line. Another from the general fund is to the Henderson County Airport in the amount of $1,046.66. This is a variable rate interest refund for the airport for their CAECO lease, which is initially issued to the county and transferred to the airport. Also from the general fund to Bruce Farmer in the amount of $4,000, and this is for the fiscal year 20 coroner's training incentive, and that is to come from that appropriation line. From the jail fund to U.S. Bank in the amount of $3,732.70. This is for miscellaneous credit card charges, primarily from appropriation lines, travel and training expenses, and equipment repairs and maintenance expense.
Can I get a motion to approve those and the correction that Treasurer Ryder mentioned?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank
you. Thank you. Come to the portion where anybody in the audience who'd like to address the court, feel free to come to the mic and speak for the good of the county. Please come to the mic and state your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Gary Quick, and I live at 971 Bellwood Drive in the northeast part of Henderson. And I'd like to visit with you about a section of Green River Road that's near the Bellwood subdivision. The portion of the road that I'm talking about, I have a couple questions about the road, and I hope that you can help me with those answers. The section that I'm talking about runs in a northeast direction, and it's just north of Greystone subdivision, and it's my understanding that the county owns Green River Road from the city limits, which is about 100 feet northeast of our entrance, all the way to Wathen Lane. Am I right about that? That that's the county's road?
I'll have the county engineer, Bill Hubiak, come up and clarify that.
Okay.
Judge, a portion of that is the county, and a portion of it is also city-county maintained. The city and the county maintain from the top of the hill where the landfill is all the way down to the four-way stop, and the county maintains totally from the subdivision, the city limit sign, up to that portion of the road that's city-county.
Just to be clear, though, it's jointly maintained, but is the county the owner of the road?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Well,
my
and
question-
ownership of roads sometimes gets, that gets thrown around. It's questioned, it's a public right-of-way or
Right.
dedicated public right-of-way. Sometimes there's ownership with particular roads, sometimes there's not. I want to be clear about that it's
This
easy
is-
to say ownership.
Maintain.
It's maintained is the important part. Yeah.
Most of our roads are through just use over a long
Right.
period of time. We don't have right-of-ways for them, and that creates problems.
Well, maybe I misstated my question. Who's responsible for the maintenance of Green River Road from the city limits north to Wathen Lane?
It's joint effort, right, Bill?
It's county from the subdivision up to the top of the hill at the landfill, and it's joint from there down to the four-way stop.
Okay, to the four-way stop.
You got a
Back-
map up there if you wanted to.
Well, from the four-way stop, the only part that I'm interested in is from the four-way stop back southwest to the city limits, or about 100 feet northeast of Bellwood subdivision. Who owns that? Who maintains that section of Green River Road? Is that city or county or both?
It's the county for 4/10 of a mile, and for a half a mile, it's city county.
Okay, so it's basically county. Can I, what's your question though, please?
My question is really related to the safety of that road. And my question is, can the county stripe that road, that section of road, with double yellow lines for safety reasons? Number one, there aren't any speed limit signs on that section of road. I don't think you'll find a speed limit sign. And it wouldn't matter, because they're not going to adhere to a speed limit sign based on what I've seen for 15 years. They're going to drive what they want to drive. And the problem with that is they're in the center of the road when they do it. And I'm not talking about a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. They're coming through there a lot faster than 35 miles an hour. And there are too many blind corners and blind hills to allow that to continue. Sooner or later, someone's going to get hurt or killed on that stretch of road. Now, the city, if I understand it, the city striped Green River Road up to the city limit sign. And I think that's very positive. But we've been told, when I say we, the residents of Bellwood, that road could not be striped because it was too narrow, which makes no sense to us at all, because it's the same width as what the city has. I don't think it's any wider. And then recently, I understand, based on some conversations that I had with people in Bellwood, what now it is apparently wide enough, but the position now is the county doesn't stripe their roads. That's my understanding of the position.
The county does not stripe roads because of the narrow width of all county roads. None of the county roads are striped. In this case, we went out and measured the road. The measuring of the road is from 19 feet to 20-some feet in places. It's one of the widest county-maintained portions of road within the county. We also pulled all the accident records for the last 5 years. There's been 7 incidences of crashes, 4 with deer. One guy had a flat tire and went off the road, and one guy slid through the intersection at the bottom of the four-way stop and then was arrested for DUI. None of the striping would have prohibited any of the accidents that have occurred.
But to clarify, the city, because of its
Second
standing
class
in
city.
the
That's right.
class system, has the ability to stripe its portion of Green River Road.
That is correct.
The county does not, because the width of the roads do not adhere to state regulations on how wide a road should be to have a stripe down the center.
Federal
Is that
and
correct?
state regulations. yes.
Federal, okay. So,
Well, I'm sorry.
Explain to Mr. Quick about the speed limit. I talked to you about, I went up there and looked, and there's no speed limits, but you explained, so explain to him about that as well, if you would.
The only way that a speed limit can be marked in our county, we would have to have a traffic study done by the MPO. And what they do is come over and they will set up not only a monitoring for a traffic count, but actually monitor the speed and give you the average speed. Now, that's something that can be done, and once that is done, they would make a recommendation if the speed limit needed to be adjusted. So that's something that could be looked at to mirror the city's 35 miles per hour, because that's their standard within all the city limits.
And I think I'd be more than willing to do that, have a traffic study done.
I can't, I'm old, but I cannot believe that this is a discussion. If you have ever driven that section of road, you know good and well that this road is dangerous. Somebody's going to get killed. Doesn't matter how many accidents or what studies you do. You don't just drive the road and think about people coming up through there at 35 miles an hour. It's dangerous at that speed. Does it take approval of the state to paint this road with 2 yellow lines? Or is that just something we're going to dig our heels in and say, well, we don't do it in the county, we're not going to do it on this road? That is bizarre to me.
It is bizarre.
It is.
But it is the state and federal regs. We don't have the road right of way, and that's one of the things that I would like to do over the next, probably take a long time to do it. Every time we do a project, I would like for us to ask for right of way where we can eventually widen the road. I mean, this is a bad road. I travel out of the Valley Frontier. But we've got a lot of roads out in the county that you can't see. They go up and down, they twist, and it would be wonderful to have striping on all of them.
Is it your position, the county's position, that if we did this one, we would have to do all of them if somebody wanted it done?
There's that
Possibility. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Well, and remember that when you stripe a road, you're forcing traffic to one side of the road or the other. And if it's not wide enough, you're potentially putting people in the position of going off the road because of the width of the lanes that you force when you stripe it. That's why there is a requirement to have a road be a certain width to have a stripe down the middle. Does that make sense?
Yes. But don't you, just as a citizen of the county, don't you want these people to be safe in that section of road?
Absolutely.
Well, then why wouldn't you try to keep them on their side of the road?
Well, a couple things. Number one, we are handcuffed by regulation. Number two, as you mentioned, people don't necessarily adhere to traffic regulations as well. Speed limit signs or stripes may or may not keep people from getting in an accident. But the challenge we have is if we stripe one, we may have to be asked to stripe others, pointing to Green River Road as an example, and then we're put in a very difficult position.
Then here's my offer to you. I'm willing to pay the cost of double yellow lining Green River Road from the city limits north to that intersection at Wathen Lane. Whatever the cost is, I will pay for that. And I will pay to have that striping refurbished as needed in the future. And I'll enter an agreement to do that. This is beyond logic to me, that this road wouldn't be striped to keep those people slowed down, because you don't have enough police officers to enforce the speed limit on this road. But the center striping may slow them down some to try to stay on their side of the road. The refuse trucks that go to the landfill are on the road, so you know that vehicles can cross or side by side. I'm just merely saying, it seems to me that the county would want to try to keep people on one side of the road in order to prevent or slow them down, at least try to slow them down, because you don't have enough cops to keep them in a speed limit. That's what I was here this morning to talk about.
I do understand the
But I'll do
fear,
this.
but it's not a
That's my
question
offer.
of it's not a question of expense.
Well, then what is it?
It's a question of federal and state regulations.
No, I'm hearing it's a question of somebody else may come and want their road striped, and we'd have to do that one. That's what I.
Well, and again, in potential conflict with federal and state regulations.
So
that's
you
the
don't
challenge.
have the authority as a county. You don't have the authority to stripe a road.
if we can, if the road is the correct width, at least a certain width. Is that right, Mr. Hubiak?
That's correct.
Well, but now I'm hearing it is okay. I mean, it's wide enough to stripe. We just don't want to stripe it because we don't
No,
want to have
your
some-
road is still not wide enough to stripe.
It ain't my road.
Well, I mean the road you're referring to.
That section of road.
Yeah, it is still not. Is that correct? It is still not wide enough to stripe.
Right.
That's right.
How wide do they have to be, Bill?
Standard roadway width per federal highways is 12-foot wide pavement,
So it needs to be 24 feet?
24 feet.
Yeah.
And then actual 3-foot shoulders on the sides,
So,
30.
so you need 12 plus
30 feet.
You need 30 feet minimum. And
That's
some
standard
places-
federal highway and state regulations, 24-foot, 3-foot shoulders.
I really recognize how difficult this job is for you. And I always admire you folks who serve your communities. And I honestly mean that from my heart. And I know this is not easy, this issue, but I mean, it's bizarre to me that somebody wouldn't immediately do this just out of safety. I have absolutely no dog in this fight, this disagreement, none. I personally, I'm indifferent. It doesn't add any value to my property or to me. It doesn't add any wealth. It's just I see it, and the folks in Bellwood, as a group, see this as a major problem. And I think it's because they drive it every day. Somebody's going to Evansville. And that section of the road is just outside dangerous. The people on that road are extremely fast, and I don't see a way to slow them down, personally, other than you need to put a line in the middle of that road, and it's merely there for safety. I don't know why the city did theirs. I didn't ask that question of them, but that's what needs to be done, what the city did to their section of Green River, coming up through, meandering past the water tower there. That, I think, was positive, and that's what I'm asking you to do, and I'm offering to pay for it.
I think it's awesome what they did. They also put the sidewalks in.
No, Judge, you're in the wrong area. The area I'm talking about is from Greystone as you meander up around the water tower and then start to go out of town. They actually double stripe that, yellow lines, all the way to the city limit.
And to clarify again, the city, because it is a second-class city, has the ability to do that. They have the legal right to do that.
One of the things, sir, I'm newly elected,
Yes.
and one of the things I had a million things I was going to make different.
I'm shocked, really?
And
No kidding.
one of the things I found out is the state regulates a lot of things you can make different and not make different. It's even though it makes a perfect sense to me and you,
Yes.
if it's against the law for us to do it, we can't. It's not as simple as just saying we're going to paint lines on that road. It's a law that we have to follow.
Well, I guess, and I can appreciate what you just said. I understand that. But after driving on the road, and I'm sure you've been on that road.
Yes, sir.
What are they going to do if you paint 2 yellow lines in the middle of it, they being the state? What are they going to do to the county? I'm just asking for a moral issue.
You know, that is a bad road. I live over there, and I drive that since the bridge is out on Wathan Lane every day. And you're right. But we still have to go by the regulations. And then you're right about law enforcement. I think the sheriff maybe have a input here. As far as enforcement, maybe, talk about that, Sheriff, if you would.
If Bill Hubiak knows whether we have to do a traffic study to set a speed limit sign, whatever we have to do to get that done, if they'll set speed limit signs, we don't have to be there 24/7 to enforce a speed limit law. If we're there occasionally and people get used to seeing us and going, well, there might be a deputy up here because I saw one yesterday, that helps slow traffic down because countywide we can't be everywhere, and most people adhere to traffic laws either because they do it voluntarily or because there's a fear there's a policeman over the hill because they've seen them there before. So if there's a speed limit sign, I can assure you we'll get up there and work radar. But before that, we can patrol the area And we can issue a citation for too fast for traffic conditions or reckless driving if we think, even if there's no speed limit, if we think they're driving too fast for safety, we can issue a citation on that. And I will promise you this, we will assign some people to start doing some moving patrols through there. And if a speed limit sign becomes existent up there, we'll put radar up there and try to slow them down. So the speed part of it we can help you with today. We'll drive through there. If we see somebody zooming up through there on the wrong side of the road and about to run off the road and driving recklessly, we can cite them for reckless driving. Not speeding, but reckless driving. But with speed limit signs, we would get up there and work radar. So as of today, I can promise you I will ask our deputies to provide some extra patrol. And then if that may help, I don't know what they'll ever be done on the center line. Maybe that can never happen. But we can have more visible patrol up there, and I hope that will help you, and we'll do that right away.
Well, Ed, I appreciate your comments. That's very kind of you, and it's positive. I can't deal with this. I just don't understand how, as a group or individually, you could drive that road, look at that road, and not say, we have a major problem here, and somebody's really going to get hurt. Now, how do we get there?
And we're not saying that we don't understand. We really do understand. Our hands are tied in many ways. But I would like to instruct the county engineer to go ahead and begin the process for starting a traffic study with the MPO. And maybe that will lead to help us post speed limit signs. The speed limit, when it's not posted in the county, defaults to 45 miles an hour. Is that correct?
55.
55? Yeah, so we need to get that done. And we'll begin that. And you heard Sheriff Brady offer some more frequent patrolling. At the moment, that's what we can do. And we do appreciate your concern.
Well, Brad, I appreciate you folks giving me some time to talk. And maybe I'm way off base here. But this is something that's very dangerous, and I can tell you for 14 or 15 years now, I've been criticizing the folks who drive on that section of road as they come up through there. And to come find out, they're not doing anything wrong. They don't have to stay on their side of the road because there is no your side of the road, number one. And number two, it's not marked for a speed limit. They've been running over us for years. And so it looks like to me they're okay. Right? I mean,
well, correct me if I'm wrong, though, and Sheriff Brady, please correct me if I'm wrong. In situations where there is no center line, people still have the obligation to stay to the right to the point of allowing traffic to pass, and they can be cited if they do not do that. Is that correct?
You're required to drive safely and keep your vehicle under control. And if they're on the wrong side of the road, going into a curve, even if there's no center line, we could cite that person for the danger they're posing to somebody else. I mean, the center line is nice to have, but if you're driving carelessly or recklessly, there's a lot of things we can do to correct that. And, I suggest we would stop them and give them a verbal warning a time or two and try to be fair with them about it. But if we saw people doing it on a regular basis, we would start issuing citations. And I think just seeing a cruiser up there, and you don't know when they're going to be there, will help some. And we'll do what we can to help you from that standpoint. And then the court sounds very concerned to me about the other aspects. And when we get speed limit signs, we can write speeding tickets up there.
And Mr. Quick, is there a time of the day that is busier than others? Is it typical rush hours?
Well, you can imagine. The traffic is different in the morning. People trying to get to work. This road change that they have down at four-way stop, there's a detour or something down there, has diverted, I think, some traffic to us. The proposed construction on Green River Road, the development that's going in. Do you know what I'm talking about on the south side of Greystone? Mm-hmm. I think, and they think, I was in that meeting, they think that it's going to impact the traffic. And it's just, it seems to me that the whole purpose of putting paints on the road, center lines on a road, is to keep people on one side of the road, the right side. And everybody, I would say everybody in Bellwood believes, everybody believes that painting that strip that stretch of road with double yellow lines in the center will help the safety, improve the safety of that stretch of road.
Mr. Quick, I'll get with Mr. Hubiak and take a look at those regulations that he's looking for. I was online here searching, trying to find chapter and verse on it there, but I did see where from 2004 forward, everything was supposed to be 30 feet wide, but I didn't see anything specifically about striping things narrower than that. So I'm going to get with Mr. Hubiak and look at that, see if there's anything
That's very
there.
kind of you.
And if that is a state law, Representative Wiederstein lives in Greystone, so it's that same road. So he might have do some good work in
that's a good
being
point.
able to get that fixed.
Gary, if I could say one.
Yes, sir.
Getting the right-of-way sounds like it'd be easy. The city, whenever that you do a development, they take that as part of your plat. That's there. Most of the things that we have, and there's some people up there on that hill in that area, their houses are almost right on the road. I know several of those people, and they're not going to give you anything.
No.
They will not let you do anything to their property. There's one where you got the junkyard behind the fence, and we fought that for
Yes.
Still fighting it.
Yes.
Okay. And so, we have had situations when we were trying to work on Wathen Lane, that Bill got people that, was going to help their property, make their property worth more, and the people still would not give the right-of-way. So then when Mr. Hubiak started going in and fixing the ditches in there where people could mow through them, the guy that wouldn't give him the right-of-way didn't have that fixed, and he got mad. And I think he finally gave you the right-of-way after that. We had some 4 farmers who were trying to fix a bridge so that the farmers could take the weight limit. It was a bridge. And one farmer out of 4 had a creek that went through it, wouldn't give us the right-of-way. So we shut it. We shut the project down. And every time the other farmers were complaining because they had to go around the long way around, talked to Farmer Jones. He's the one that wouldn't give us the right-of-way. The
Yes.
next year, Farmer Jones came in and said, "Here, I'll sign." Let me
Yes.
get,
Yes.
and a little step by step is what it's going to take. But we need to get our roads all widened, and they need to be striped. You're exactly
Well,
right.
I'm not going to identify people, but a member of the group asked me, Gary, what exactly do you want? And the response in my group was, of course, number one, they wanted this road completely renovated. They wanted the knolls cut off. They wanted right-of-way to be purchased. They wanted the pavement to be, curb, gutter, the whole 9 yards. That's what they wanted. And my question was, what's your fallback position? Because that's never going to happen. The county doesn't have that kind of money. It's only like a half a mile, but they don't have that kind of money, and they're not going to invest in it. Well, the fallback position is stripe the road to keep cars, try to keep the drivers on the right side of the road. So I think most of people know that that road is never going to be what they really want to see, which is curbed and guttered. But maybe the fallback position is, to be safer, try to get somebody or at least a group of them on the right side of the road. And with that, I apologize.
Nope, don't
No.
apologize.
No, yeah.
We'll do what we can.
Thank
We
you.
absolutely will do what
I
we
know
can.
you will,
And if
I
you,
appreciate you.
we will report back to you on the MPO traffic study when we can get that going. And if you want to communicate directly with the sheriff about any plans he has to
And Ed, I appreciate,
increase enforcement.
I appreciate you offering. And again, I
and
apologize.
Mr. Gold and Mr. Huback will communicate to make sure the regulations are as we think they are, and if there are any options there.
If there's a way around it, I'll try to find it.
Well, if it comes down to Steve finds a way around it, and then the issue becomes we don't have the money to do that, to paint that road, I'm as serious as a heart attack. I will agree to that in writing, and any refurbishment in the future, as long as I'm alive.
I appreciate that. It's really not a matter of money, but I do appreciate that, and we will
And
get
that may
back to
not be
you.
much longer.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Thank you, Bill.
I'll forward the request to MPO immediately so we can get the traffic study done.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anybody else for good of the county? I'd ask Mr. Garrett, Kenny Garrett, if you would come up to the mic real quick. He's Director of Emergency Management Agency here in the county, just to talk briefly about 2 warming centers that have been created in the county with the current cold snap may be an important issue.
I'm a little shorter. I got to pull the mic down a little bit. Good morning. We do. We've got. I talked to the Salvation Army yesterday, and they've agreed that they'll just. I think it's probably normal procedure for them to be open during the business hours anyway, but they'll have their site open today and tomorrow, and also a gathering place up on Elm Street. They've also got the ability to open that up, and they have that open during the day as well. But if we need anything overnight, we can. The gathering place is offered to open up overnight if we need to. We just need to call them and get that scheduled.
Keep us posted. Any other questions about that? Please refer any of your constituents who might need a place to go during the day at this point. Salvation Army and the gathering place are that, and if we, working with Kenny and these agencies, determine we need an overnight shelter, you'll let us know. You'll let the public know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Kenny, I just want to say thank you, too, for the fire at Weaverton School. I was in contact with Kenny, and he was right on all that stuff. So thanks for that also. And the warming center, I'm glad that worked out. So I kind of figured it would. But
We'll try to stay on top of those things.
I know you
It's
do.
been a busy month or so.
Yeah,
so
I know
really
it has, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Well, thank you. I was going to actually, when I get it finished, I was going to invite the court to come down and see it, but it's downstairs.
Thank you. Anybody else for good of the county? Master at Southern? Oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
I just got an update where looks like we're going to be able to get the crane tomorrow. We're going to load the beams at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning on the bridge deck from Watson Lane to transport the North Three Goober. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Magistrate Southern.
This cold weather, I'm really worried about what it's going to do to our roads, but I've been out. I finally got finished with the crop. I've been out driving around, looking at the roads, and they look really good. My hat's off to the road department. I think they do a great job. And I would like to tell Jack congratulations. I think it says a lot about you when you come in dressed like you are. You're a winner, that's for sure. And congratulations to the parents, because I know they're proud too. And all's good in 3.
Master Moran.
Same thing. We're proud of you, Jack, and keep up the good work. I know I'll be looking forward to seeing you in the paper and all the things you're going to be doing in the future. I think everything's well in District 2.
Master at Putman.
Thank you, Judge. Got to ask the question. You're Eric's brother. Yeah. And Jack, did we go to lunch one other time? Is this your second award? Or was it?
No, it was our oldest son.
That was the oldest son, because we went to the Cracker Barrel, if I remember. So listen, he set the bar, obviously, because here you are. The same thing. They both got a day that you got your proclamation. That's just amazing to me. And we served together on the Salvation Army Board also. So I was thinking, golly, I recognized you. It's been a while. And then I was thinking, I went to lunch with Dalton. So you're following in the right footsteps. And Mom, Dad, you're doing something right for sure. So congratulations, Jack. I'm proud of you. All's good in the court, Judge.
Master McCollum.
Jack, thank you. Congratulations to you once again. I think it's fantastic, and to the family as well. Things are coming somewhat clearer, I think, in our overall budget and stuff. I think our meeting the road department today, to be up to 100%, we need to spend $52 million more on our roads. Our retirement program, we're $23 million in debt on that one. And the reason I bring this up in probably about 1980, I'm going to say 88 or 89, the county was trying to raise some revenue because we didn't have enough money to make our budget or pay our people. That's when we went into the fee pooling, where we took the money from the sheriff and the clerk. They used to run their own office. They could decide when they wanted to hire people. They could decide all that kind of stuff. And that, in my opinion, was better. But the county took their money away from them. The county magistrate Forrestier tried to raise the revenue at that time when we were setting taxes. There was a newspaper article that was written by the editor that talked about our $300,000 of excess money, which really wasn't excess money. And that's what I'm wanting us to see, what our really actual long-term needs are. We still don't know what the long-term needs are on our bridges. We don't know what the long-term needs on our buildings, our roofs, our cars, the depreciation, things that we got to do to repair. And I think it's important that we look at those things so that we can adequately fund and do what we need to do for our county. Obviously, it would be nice if we could widen our roads and stripe them all, have curb and gutters, have sidewalks. All those things would be wonderful, but you got to take care of what you got within your means of what you've got. So that is important. Early on this year, we passed a resolution or an agreement that we passed. I made a motion, and I think Tim seconded it, to not allow raises without approval of the court. And now the Treasurer's Office has gotten a letter saying that that's not any good, that has to be in the administrative code. So I would ask that we put that issue on for the administrative code to do it just like we did that $20,000 to raise that up, and just that one portion of it, so we don't have any more of that. That kind of stuff has to come back to the court. So I would ask us to put that on the agenda for next meeting. Thank you.
Anything else? I do want to say we have been in the process of compiling all future capital needs, and we actually have accomplished a lot of that. We're not quite done because we've added some equipment and some needs since the beginning of the fiscal year, but we do have a pretty good handle on what at least is going to be required over the next 5 to 10. Now, 20 to 50, still anything could happen between now and those far distant dates. And just so everybody doesn't act too surprised, when he refers to owing $52 million on our roads and owing $23 million on our obligations to retirees, that's over a long period of time. And that's, in the case of the roads, that's if we could fix everything exactly to the exact specs of being brand new.
And I'm not trying to alarm people about that, but what I want people to think of, and when they say, well, you got $10 million, we've got to have $3 or $4 million just for cash flow purposes. Mm-hmm. And if you get down below that, we can't make payroll. I mean, so it's not that I'm trying to alarm anybody, but you got to look at the big picture as well.
And we have, I think
you've done a great job. I'm not trying to criticize.
And Mr. Sartori is here today because we have so much in reserve for instances just like you mentioned, that Field and Main has to actually adjust their procedures just to handle it. And that's a good news. That's more than $300,000.
Well, in the past, not these particular court members,
no, I get
but they have spent money, and we ended up writing bad checks out of the general fund.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that if I can help it. I don't think any of us want to be in that position again, and we're not going to go there. And I just want you all,
that's all our goal. That's the goal of everybody here. Yeah. With that, Master Barry.
I forgot what I was going to say again, Charlie.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
I just tear you up all the time.
We're on board with Charlie. This is not a wasteful court. We're going to do the best we can. And I want to thank everybody that came to court today and spoke. The bank, Bill, thank you, and the sheriff for helping me out on Green River Road. I think he knows I live around the corner from him. I drive that road every day. And I need help up there. So thank you all, and thanks, Sheriff, for your input. Thank Jack's parents for being here, and thanks for having such a fine-looking young man. Jack, congratulations. I think everybody's covered all that, but congratulations. Man, he's just sharp as a tack. Thank you, guys. And Jack, you go eat. I guess they're going to eat, right? Mm-hmm. You eat plenty. Okay. Thanks for the blacktop. We got blacktop in districts 1 and 2. You got something? Or Tim's? 2. Okay, thanks for that.
Tim always gets his.
He does. I know. I was second to him. I don't know what the deal is. It must be his tie. I should have worn one.
Keith, you can have on my blacktop.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I was hoping you'd say that. Okay, but anyway, everything's good as it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold.
Well, you're right on about Jack being real sharp. We were talking about some roads out in Cairo. He's like, some of those need stripes. Some of those are, he was on it. I think he's got a list going for you, Bill. But and I warned him and his family. I said it's always the short agendas when the meetings go long. So that's kind of happened, but that's also a good thing that you get to see how the process works, and it's been nice having you up here as a wingman. So congratulations to you, and order double dessert. You know, but yeah, you and your family are doing some great things, and I know we're going to see a lot of great things out of you in the future, and proud of what you're doing. As far as in the county attorney's office, things are going fantastic. We received a grant for something that has been a goal of ours since the first day that I came into office. I had a list. I've been able to mark off most of the things, but the one that was still on there was getting a grant for a victim's advocate. And that's something that just came through after years of applying and getting rejected. So that's something we're very excited about. We think it's going to really change much for the better how we're able to handle crime victims in Henderson. And that came through the Kentucky Justice Cabinet through a federal grant called VOCA, the Victims of Crime Act. So that's something we're really excited about, Beth. I'm going to be getting a release out about that later on in the day. But that's something, like I said, that's 11 years of working hard trying to get that going, and I'm really happy about that. So things are going fantastic in the county attorney's office.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. I want to make sure Jack understands that as many remarks have been made about your attire today, that's not why we're here, and that's not why you're here. You've done a really good job as a student and a leader, as a person at your school. That's why it's Jack Dalton Day. We can all appreciate a well-dressed man, but I want you to know that we really appreciate the job you've done as parents. I know that's a reflection on you and reflection on the school as well. So congratulations. Keep up the good work. You're going to be going to lunch with Magistrate Southard. Ben is here about all the stripes and widening roads that you want. He's the guy. But congratulations. This is a big deal. Speaking of that, I think the discussion today with Mr. Quick is the point is well taken. It does highlight the fact that part of our responsibility is to be as fair as we can to all residents of the county and try to handle in a reasonable way requests from any individual, but that in the end our responsibility is to make sure that the entire county is treated as fairly as possible and even-handedly as possible. And sometimes that keeps us from completely fulfilling the request of a single person when we balance it against what we would have to do for all the people in the county if they made the same request. And sometimes that results in some requests not being fulfilled entirely. And I think we all understand precisely what Mr. Quick was talking about. Public safety is a huge concern to this court and to Sheriff Brady and everybody else who deals with the roads, including Mr. Hubiak. We will always try to do what we can to help and to stay within the letter of the law and to also make sure that what we do for one, we can do for another in a similar circumstance. So I think it's always important to remember that. And I think everybody on this court would agree that's always our goal. Fairness, equity, within our means and within the letter of the law. So it was just an interesting discussion, and I thought I'd remind everybody that, we're not here to be naysayers or begin at the word no and work from there. We're just trying to understand it as best we can and make the most fair decision we can, especially with added information from things such as the traffic count and other data. I do want to give a huge compliment to the students and administrators of South Middle School who put on their annual Veterans Day program yesterday. It's always outstanding. It's always emotional. I know the veterans who attend appreciate it. The students who attend are just outstanding. They're respectful. They sing the national anthem at the top of their lungs when they sing it. They applaud each of the veterans as they come into the gym. It's really a sight to see. And for me, the most emotional part is at the end when they do the roll call. And if you've seen that, it's quite something. They call the names of veterans that they are aware from Henderson County. And if they have passed on and they do not answer the roll call, a bell is rung. And I think that is the tradition in the military, and they duplicate that at that ceremony, and it's quite something. Always kind of, it's a tearjerker. But I do think is respectful and I think the concern by the students for veterans is sincere, and that's quite something to see. And with that,
I would like to do one more thing. I'd like to give you a compliment. You have been one of the fairest judges that I've ever had the pleasure to be around. You don't, if somebody's a Democrat or Republican or independent or whatever, you treat them all the same. I wish our Frankfurt and Washington would do the same thing, but I do appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Magistrate McComb. I appreciate that. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor can leave.
Aye.